Hello, everyone. Welcome back to How to Beat Your Mom at Chess. I'm Jennifer Shahade, and on this channel, which I invite you to subscribe to and like, we are going to be going on a journey with my 6-year-old son, who I'm teaching tactics and chess strategies to. Hope you learn something along the way and get entertained as well. This week, my son is actually at his very first chess camp. Well, in order to beat his mom, he's got to learn from a few people other than his mom, right? But today, I want to invite you to a chess game that I played in the Hamptons against another really strong player. He's actually a poker player as well. His name is Richard Tuhrim, and we played my new favorite chess variant. If you saw my first video, you know what it is. It's Chessball. The plan in this game was that 1.5 minutes we can make a layup, which is actually sweatier. And then once we got to the last 20 seconds of the game, we would just play chess. I want to talk to you a little bit about the opening here. So my opponent is a poker player, very strong poker player, used to be a professional. I don't know how well he knows my chess, but he did play the move that annoys me the most. And the thing about poker is that it's not just about playing the best move, it's also about annoying your opponent. So very much like a chess poker player to play knight f3 against me, my least favorite move. Why do I hate playing against knight f3? Well, it's because I'm a Grunfeld player. And you can't really play the Grunfeld until there's a pawn on d4. I don't hate c4 as much, which has a lot of overlap with knight f3, often transposes, because c4 does give me the option to play e5, which is a beautiful looking move. I mean, I love playing against a Sicilian, so it's really that reversed. Knight f3, on the other hand, is a bit of a pain in the butt. If you're watching this video and you don't know what to do against knight f3 or c4, think about your repertoire and make sure that you've got a plan. So of course, if you play something like the King's Indian defense, you're golden. You know, you can do whatever you want because g6, bishop g7, knight f6, they work against all the lines. But if you play something like the Grunfeld or the Nimzo, you might have some planning to do. You have to kind of make sure you've got a plan for knight f3 and c4. And my plan was to play basically the quasi-Grunfeld. They call it the Anglo-Grunfeld because it does transpose after c4. So basically, I'm going to play the Grunfeld despite the fact that white doesn't have a pawn on d4. And I'm going to say it's kind of meh. I mean, it's not my favorite opening, to say the least, because when you don't have d4 in, I don't have as much to chew on, right? The Grunfeld's an opening where I play bishop g7 and I get my pawn on d5, right? In fact, I play d5 right now because I don't want to allow e4, which is why I play d5 here. It's not as exciting when you don't have this knight on c3 that's only protected by a b pawn, and you have no way to like chew on the d4 pawn either. So it gives like white a lot of extra options. And that's why it's not a fun opening to play against. In fact, I kind of rethinking this, like if I should go back to playing the symmetrical or something like that against the knight f3, just play like c5. But in any case, let's take a look at why this is so bad. Well, first of all, it's not that bad. So that's one thing I should probably instill in you, is that if you have an opening that you hate to play against, one of the biggest issues is psychological. That when you see it in the board, you get a little tilted, to use another poker term. And that's not good, because I think this opening in this middle game of this game, I was like just like a little frustrated because he played something I didn't want him to play. The game before was actually a wild French opening where I kind of got a type of position I like to get attacking, and then it's just like deflated. Like, I'm like, oh, this. So just like in life, you know, a positive attitude is really important. Try to get the like negative thoughts out of your head. When you're training, sure, I hate this opening, but when you're playing over the board, try not to scale it back. Like, yay, I get to try and see if I can make this work. You know, just something that turns it around so that you feel a little bit more pep in your step. Anyway, let's see if I did that. And let's actually take a peek in at some of the chess ball action itself. Well, actually, I did take on c3. And now, it might surprise some of you who don't know this kind of theory, but he actually takes here with the d pawn, offering up a queen trade, which will lose him the privilege of castling. Oh no, I'm glad Fabian is in for this one. The last thing I want him to do is castle last. So here's actually one moment I wanted you guys to take a think on. What would you do here for black? What would you do for black? So a lot of you are probably going to say, bishop g7, bishop g4, kind of like normal looking active moves, right? And bishop g7 in particular is a move that you often play as soon as you get the opportunity after playing g6. But the most popular move here by far is none of the above. It's not knight c6. It's not knight d7. It's not bishop g7. It's not bishop g4. It's not bishop d7. It's not b6. It's none of those moves. It's the move pawn to f6. By far the most popular move here. Did any of you get that right? If so, amazing job. Or, I guess you maybe play this opening. But honestly, I had studied this before. In fact, I have a student who plays this, so I had looked at it kind of recently even. And I totally forgot because f6 is a really weird move. Like the point here, as you can see by all these arrows that I helpfully programmed in, is that after king c2, e5, the bishop can go to the c5 square, supported by maybe a knight on d7. And everything is quite harmonious now. Rather than us just like having a bishop on g7 that hits granite, doesn't control any important squares, and makes it unpleasant to play e5 because then our bishop will be bad. Spoiler alert. So very advanced stuff. You might say, like, why would I ever need to know to play f6? But it does make the position easier to play because of the harmony of the position. I guess also in some situations why you might want to play knight g5, especially if it gets a bishop on c4, and f6 nips that in the bud as well. One thing I would say about this, though, is like, why did I forget f6? Because it's a forgettable move. It's not that interesting of a move in a way. It's not that, well, I wouldn't say it's not interesting because it is interesting. I've been talking about it for 2 minutes. It's not memorable. Right? It's not like a slash and burn. It's not even a development move. So it kind of like doesn't just stick into your brain that easily. So when something doesn't stick into your brain that easily, you have to make it stick, right? If you want to try to remember your openings and your lines and different patterns. So there's a couple ways to approach this. Recently on my podcasts, I had a great friend of mine. Her name is Yenja Wintersoul. She's a memory champion, and she recommends creative memory, which means telling a story about something that will allow you to remember it more easily. Then, of course, there's the method that's championed by Chessball, where you use spaced repetition and create your own database and test yourself against it using either your own modules, their modules. That's a really good one as well. I'm a writer. One thing I always found helpful is put it in words. Why are you playing this move? Because words, like, I guess that has some similarity with the creative method. Words tend to stick. So anyway, I didn't play f6. I played bishop g7 like a normal person who forgets everything and doesn't remember where they put their glasses or their keys, okay? But next time, I know I'm going to play f6. So king to c2 was played, and Ali played knight to c6. I was aware that knight c6 probably wasn't the right move, but I figured blitz chessball, this move is a little bit active. I don't care if I mess up my structure after bishop b5. I'm just going to get my pieces out and castle long and see if I can get something going. Well, he's actually just played king to c2. So I need to come back, play knight c6, and then we'll see what he played, which is bishop to f4, attacking this pawn on c7. But I decided, and look at him, he comes back real fast here. Bishop to f4. Oh, I missed again. Come on, Jen. Get it in. All right, let's see. I know, no, guys. This one's going to be the one that I make. Oh, all right. Well, anyway, bishop to f4. I did play bishop to g4 as we cut out the basket that I made. Bishop to g4 was my move. I'm not worried about this because I figured I could play rook c8. And like, for instance, bishop c4, c7, rook c8. And now I can take and play knight d4. So that was not a big concern of mine. And indeed, Richard did not play that. He played bishop b5. Beautiful how he has to go chase the ball. I love to see it. And after bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6, my pawns are all messed up. But, things could be worse. I think he lost about a minute on the clock there. I mean, frankly, not my favorite move here. He moves his knight at this point. He wants to keep the position juicy. I don't hate that, but maybe you should consider like knight e5 or knight g5, something a little more aggressive. He played knight d2, which strategically makes sense. I mean, I understand he sees he has this square, maybe this square later, but now I play bishop e2, which I really feels like a very nice lifeline for my bishop. Beautiful lifeline here. I'm actually starting to get some attacking possibilities. And, you know, I would like you to just, I'm going to pause the video for a second. I did play bishop d3 check here. Pretty much compelling him to move his king up to b3, which he does instantly here, as I make a shot right away and I get to come right back. So let me pause for a second because this is an important moment for me, in fact. Well, what should I do here? I play king b7, and I think that's actually pretty good. But I do need to start thinking about my plan here. Because here's the thing, the long-term advantage is all white. Long-term advantage in this position is all white. Why? Because my structure is terrible, right? And white structure is beautiful. And it's a very close position, so this knight can end up becoming really nasty. I have the two bishops, and this one seems like it's doing a pretty good job, but this one's nothing to write home about. You know, I love my dragon and Grunfeld bishops, but this one's not hitting anything at the moment. So I need to be active or perish. So king b7, I'm looking to find a way to get my king into the game, but even more importantly, to get my rooks into the game. After king to b7, f3 was played. Very nice, overprotecting this pawn. And now, what did you guys do here? Because I played the move e5, which, you know, later Richard and I both like kind of criticized because it kind of killed this bishop, just to make quick tempo. Like, I did have a plan that maybe my bishop could come back into the action via f8. But, you know, it's a typical mistake that a lot of people make of all levels, from master down to, you know, beginner, is making moves that are forcing in a blitz game just because they're forcing. Here's the thing, like, forcing moves is huge. I mean, I love forcing moves, but I love puzzles, so I love forcing moves. But also, the whole idea is to always look at your forcing moves. Okay, get it? Like, not to play them. And I think this is such an important distinction. Like, you must always look at every forcing move. The stronger you get, the more that encompasses, right? When you're just starting out, that's like captures and checks. When you get better, it's like any attacking move of any kind. But that doesn't mean you always play forcing moves. That's a mantra. Look at forcing moves, don't always play them. And the reason it's so tempting to do it is because when you play a forcing move, you know what your opponent's going to play, right? They're going to play bishop e3, right? And indeed, that is what Richard played. But I do have a better move here. I think it's one that comes more naturally to players who are queen pawn players, because it's more of like a construction move. So constructing a good position here, dream big, right? The best move here is c5. Once you see it, it's so obvious, but it wasn't even on my radar. And I think that is a kind of like a d4, e4 dichotomy, because d4, c4 players are a bit more used to playing these kind of like queenless middle games and the importance of king activity. And here, getting this king behind this pawn and then getting my rooks into the game in a very elegant way, it just didn't occur to me. Because honestly, I feel like I thought of c5 as an anti-positional move because it hurts a square, and because the c pawn's definitely weaker on c5 than it is on c6. I mean, it's weak either way, but it's certainly a little weaker here. It can be easily attacked. So didn't occur to me. And I think that's why sometimes we're a little bit simplistic when we say like e4 players, tactical and aggressive, and d4 players more positional, because honestly, this is like an anti-positional but more aggressive move, and I missed it because I'm not as comfortable in these types of situations. So let's take a look at the analysis behind it so you can kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about. Like, let's say white just plays some weird normal move, bishop e3, attacking the pawn. I play king c6. Let's say they play another move, just a random move. Not saying at all that Richard would have played this. But notice how white is already in trouble, right? King a3. And now I have a really bomb move for black. Can you find it in this analysis situation? Pause the video for a second. Well, kudos if you found rook b6. Very nice move. The idea is to play rook a6 check, and you'll notice if white just plays another nothing move, it's actually checkmate. That came out of nowhere. So this is a beautiful example of what I was talking about. Like, I want it to be a middle game, and Richard wants it to be an end game. Because if it's a middle game and I have a chance to attack, the fact that his king is a little exposed and I've got my bishop nestled in on d3 and I've got an open line for my rooks could end up, you know, giving me some kind of counterplay and even a checkmate in this little fantasy line. So c5, very, very nice and instructive move that I failed to play. I did, of course, realize that I needed to get active. That much I knew. You know, it's clear, you know, structurally I'm screwed, got to get active. But unfortunately, I found that wrong execution playing e5, which, I mean, I still got chances. I'm not overstating and I'm not losing here, but c5 is like a way better move. Not only is it objectively better, but it's also subjectively better because it makes black's position really easy to play. Here, I'm already kind of like, I played rook b8 kind of with a similar idea, but you can see how inferior it is, right? Then instead of getting my king to this nice active position, I'm kind of like snaking it backwards. Even then, the rooks aren't connected. What would you do here as white? So your structure is amazing, but you do have some king issues. I just played king to b7. I actually just played rook to b8, that is. So I'm eyeing your king. What's the best way to play? Pause the video is really a tough one. All right, well, if you thought that the answer was c4, huge props. I mean, this is a fantastic move. And ironically, it's totally symmetrical to the move that I missed earlier, c5, right? In both cases, the king needed that shelter, that like post-castling shelter. It's like the king wants to be active, but it doesn't want to be exposed. And if you think about it, it is so iconic for a queenless middle game, right? You're not really sure where you are. Kind of like you need a light hoodie. It's the sweater wetter of chess. You don't want any heavy blanket, you know, you might want to get there in the action, but you need a little bit of protection, right? So this idea of c4, put your king on c3, the bishop on g7 is now dead because I played that e5 move. And your king is both active because it's trying to trap my bishop on d3, but also safe. This type of construction, I think after seeing how powerful it was for both sides, you might remember it now. Let's take a look at the chessball action. Let's see who's making the shots. We're actually in the layup portion of the competition. By the way, in this actual shot, he had already played c4. So if you found c4 because you were just looking at the camera, hey, you got it right as well. You can't hate the game, right? Wait, no, hate the player, not the game. That's what I meant to say. So you still got it right. So anyway, I'm still trying here to get some counterplay. So I'm playing rook hd8. He plays king c3 as anticipated. And I play bishop f8. So you see I'm trying to play some kind of bishop b4 action. Unfortunately, my king is still in the way, so I can't quite do that yet. So he played a3, and after that, I played a5. And after b4, I played for f5. He played the move here, knight to b3. And I believe I just took on b4 with a check. Let's see. Yeah, indeed. I took on b4 with a check. And then after pawn takes b4, still can't take that pawn on b4. So I decide to slide my king back into c8. Finally, I have a threat in the game. It's been a little while. And he sticks his bishop on c5. Very strong move. It's just, he's icing out all my counterplay here. And the worst part of it is that this bishop on d3 is looking very, very sad. It used to be such a happy bishop, you know? Restricting the king. And now you can kind of understand why e5 was such a bad move. Yeah. I mean, I think I could have recovered from it better than this. But that's the thing. It became very difficult for me to recover after not playing c5. I tried bishop h6, but this does not change anything. He just plays rook d1, and look at that bishop, no squares. I think I threw in the towel here because I think I tried bishop takes e4, but resigned soon thereafter because rook takes d8, king takes d8, rook e4, and he's just up a piece, right? So an incredibly instructive game, a very sweaty game for me as we were running back and forth. Definitely got a good workout in that 5-minute game, like, 10 minutes of mental and physical cardio. But more importantly, I learned a lesson from that blitz game. These king constructions behind your pawns are so critical to find, and it's about harmonizing your pieces. And as we know, in the end game, well, as we know now, in the end game, the king can be a fighting piece. But what if you're not sure if it's a middle game or an end game? Well, that's where you find that kind of intermediate fort tent for your king so that he can kind of go whichever way the position takes him. So I hope you enjoyed this session of how to beat your mom at chess. And there's a lot going on in the chess world right now. I'm going to be back very soon with a little update from the Women's World Chess Championship going on right now in China. I'll be back with some thoughts from my son, Fabi. And I hope you will be back to enjoy it all. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.